Over the last many weeks, it's likely that you've heard me talk a lot about the spiritual and mental effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Social isolation is, in its own way, a challenge for many, many people, and the effects of social isolation include increased anxiety, depression, apathy, boredom, and loneliness, among other effects. These are real and palpable and incredibly stressful for many of us who are practicing social isolation or social distancing. I wanted to talk to you during this podcast not just about these very real effects, but how we can actually address them as yoga teachers and spiritual leaders. It turns out we have some great tools in our toolkit that we can utilize right now to alleviate some of these effects of social distancing. The things that I explain in this podcast will be very helpful to you as an individual, but also to your students and clients that you reach out to support them through what is a very difficult time. Welcome to the Modern Mystics Podcast. I'm your host, Alana Kaivalya, the Yoga Doctor. I'm here to help you realize your potential as a spiritual leader and elevate your work in the realm of yoga, mysticism, and spirituality. This podcast covers all of our favorite topics: yoga, alchemy, astrology, divination, spirituality, psychology, ritual, and mystical practices, both ancient and modern. Get ready to uplevel your status as a modern mystic. Within yoga, we have a couple of different frameworks to look at the psyche. The psyche is the totality of your conscious and unconscious mind and also includes the super consciousness, that higher part of us that delivers us inspiration when most needed. Connecting all three parts of the psyche is what results in the psycho-spiritual state of yoga. Now, that all might sound lofty, but it's all really based in psychology. If you've ever taken any basic psychology courses, it's likely you've heard of a guy named Sigmund Freud and his theory of dividing the psyche into these three parts: the ego, the superego, and what he called the id, or what we call the unconscious. Carl Jung, another very famous psychologist, did the same thing, and I'm sure you've also heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and he had this way of dividing the psyche into understandable bite-sized chunks. Now, there are many different reference points for how we understand the psyche, how we break it up, how we address it, work with it from a lot of different perspectives. Interestingly, yoga is a psychological practice, and it too has these perspectives that it looks at the psyche with. So the two primary perspectives from yoga that we look at the psyche through is the perspective of the chakras. The chakras are probably the primary way in which we would address psychology through yoga. And I don't just mean asana. I mean through a holistic perspective, understanding the various layers of development and needs and desires of a human being. The chakras give us that layered look at the psyche so that we can address all of those layers or pieces to make sure that we are a whole and complete human being. Now, the other perspective that we're going to talk mostly about today is the perspective of what are called the Kosha, or koshas, if we wanted to employ some Ameriscrit there. So the Kosha, or koshas, and there are 5 of them, is a way to divide the body up into layers like an onion. So if the chakras are layers that ascend like a set of stairs, the koshas are a layer system that looks at the body like an onion from outer to inner. So let's talk a little bit about that today. Now, I want to give you, before we jump into these 5 koshas, I want to give a little bit of background of why this is so relevant for you as a spiritual leader right now. Now, in my last few podcasts, as well as if you've been joining me on Facebook Live or Instagram Live or inside any of my private groups, I've been heavily focused on the last few weeks telling you as a spiritual leader how important it is for you to step up right now and support your community. We have a really special role during this critical time. The medical professionals are helping people stay physically healthy. You and I, as spiritual professionals, can help people stay spiritually and emotionally healthy. There are real and powerful consequences that are occurring as a result of this pandemic. From social distancing or social isolation, removing us from our biggest coping mechanisms in time of stress, namely friends, family, gatherings, the ability to commune, get together, or even just the stress of potentially getting this virus, dealing with the consequences, the stress of all of the lost wages, work. It's a hugely stressful time. So stress is at an all-time high. Our bodies are actually not equipped to deal with this. If you think of our physical bodies on an evolutionary scale, our bodies are equipped to deal with short-term, immediate stress. So, for example, being chased by a bear or a mountain lion, where the stress is very high, but very short-lived. Our body systems can handle that. We go into that fight or flight response, and then soon after it's over, we can shift back into the rest and digest response and calm down, relax, and that helps to restore and return our body to balance. But in periods of constantly applied high stress, our body actually starts to break down. It can't handle that long-term stress. It can play havoc on our immune system, wreak havoc on our hormonal balance, wreak havoc on our circadian rhythms. There's a lot of compounding effects of constantly applied long-term stress. And so it's really important that we apply various tools and modalities in order to reduce that stress. In fact, it's imperative in order that we remain healthy, both physically and emotionally and spiritually, as a collective, as a cohort, in order to continue to fight this pandemic in every way in which it needs to be addressed. So you and I are on the spiritual and emotional front lines of this. You as an individual, obviously, need to keep your stress levels low and your resilience high so that you can support your community. And you need to bring these tools to your community so that they can help to manage their stress levels during this very, very insane time. So I've been imploring you throughout the last, couple months now, via all the mediums I have access to make sure that you understand how important your role is right now, and that stepping up into that role is critical, not just for you, but for all the people that you support. So to that end, I wanted to give you some practical guidelines on how you can do that, because it's one thing to tell you, hey, you've got to step up right now. You are so valuable. You are so important. And it's a whole different thing to tell you how to actually do that and why it's so important. So let's dive into the koshas, because these really give us the structure and the tools for how we can help. So I'll go through them fairly quickly, as I'm hoping that perhaps you have heard about the koshas before. These, again, are the layers of the body, mind, spirit complex, more of an onion style from outer to inner. And it's likely that you may have studied them or heard about them in your teacher training programs, but I also don't want to assume that that's the case, and it's always good to have a refresher. So there are 5 layers according to this element of yoga philosophy or yoga psychology, which is really what we're taking a look at here, the psyche as expounded upon by yoga. So the outermost layer, in Sanskrit, it's called the Annamaya kosha. And this is the physical layer, or the food body. Anna literally means food. And Maya is that illusion that is essentially our reality. Anything that appears to be our reality outside of the most true and core reality that we all are one, right? So yes, of course we all are one, but we experience ourselves as a physical body that has to move around and eat and sleep daily. And kosha is simply the term for sheath or covering. It's the name for these layers. So the outermost layer is the Annamaya kosha, the food body. And this is your actual physical, very tangible body, your muscles, your skin, your bones. And structurally speaking, there are actually big effects when we are under psychological stress as we are at this time. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But the way that we treat this physical body is primarily by what we eat. And of course, if you you've delved in at all to any of the news or the research coming out, keeping your body healthy with good, healthy food is another way to help combat or mitigate stress. So I know that it's very tempting during times of social distancing, like we all are, to perhaps be very lax about eating habits. And no matter how you choose to eat, make sure that at this time, in order to continue to combat, fight stress, keep your immune system healthy, that you choose healthy options for food. That's a really important part of the food body. So that's the primary way that we work with the food body. It's also about physical exercise. Asana has a part here in terms of the physical exercise, but it has actually a bigger effect on the next deep layer. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But I really want to actually stress that asana has its place. It's not a comprehensive form of exercise. I don't care how fast you do your sun salutations, that's not cardiovascular exercise. And you can do the most challenging asanas and it still won't be considered total body strength training. So in physical exercise, it's great to have a cardio routine and a strength training routine to complement whatever it is you might be doing with asana. The next layer is the physiological layer, or the Pranayama Kosha, and you might recognize the first part of that word, prana, which is our everything that moves, our physiological body. So that's the blood circulation, that's the respiratory system, that's the lymph, everything moving inside of us, the hormonal system, the endocrine system is a part of that Pranayama Kosha, that physiological layer. And for us as yogis, it's also the energetic body, or the prana body, the pranic body, the subtle body. And this is where asana really shines. It has its greatest effect on our subtle body, this pranamaya layer, helping us to allow energy to move properly throughout the body. Now, this is a subtle layer. I can't show you the pranic body, but you can feel it when you feel energy stuck in a place. And one of the best ways I've found to discover where energy might be stuck is to mentally send the breath into a location. Now, obviously, your breath in your lungs exist in your chest, and your diaphragm pulls the air in through these lungs that expand. But you can mentally and energetically send breath to locations. You can send it to your lower back. You can send it to your wrist. You can send it to your ankle. And as you do that, you're moving the prana, or the energy, into these places. And if it's difficult to do so, number one, attempting to do it helps to build a body-mind connection, which is great. And number two, it helps you to understand how that energy is flowing around the body. So this is a really simple practice that you can do, and that you can also guide your students through, helping to move the air and the breath through to these different places. It brings awareness to the different parts of the body. It's also very calming and relaxing. So asana is wonderful, and as the name of this layer might suggest, the Pranayama Kosha, pranayama is very helpful for this. It is directly correlative to what this layer is for and about, this physiological layer, this layer that moves around us. And, of course, because this layer is associated with our respiratory system, our circulatory system, our endocrine system, our lymph system, all of the things that help to address those in a helpful manner are going to be helpful. So making sure that your hormonal balance is optimized through food, through diet, through supplementation, that's really important. But we as yogis, we have a special way that we deal with this too, and that is pranayama. It's not the only way, but it is a way that we help to deal with this. So utilizing that breath work, whether it be alternate nostril breathing or even something as basic as 3-part breath. The next layer down is the Manomaya Kosha, and this is the mind layer. Mano means mind, and this is the layer primarily of the emotional body. So our emotions are typically very out of our control, and they often contribute to a lot of chatter, mental chatter, self-talk, often critical self-talk. This is the part of the mind that says things like, I want this, I don't want that. I like this, I don't like that. I am comfortable with this, I am not comfortable with that. This is the mental chatter that creates the racing mind for those who are anxious, the negative self-talk for those who are experiencing depression. So this is where we really start to see the effects of social distancing, sheltering in place, quarantine, isolation. The top two layers, the more physical layers, the physical body, the physiological body, those layers, yes, we can address them through yoga, and I've explained how, but our yoga tools for those layers are not as powerful as some of the tools that are wielded by the medical community, to be honest with you. So our medical professionals are going to be the best at helping our physiological layers stay healthy during this time. All right, we can do some mitigation techniques. We can employ some of our techniques like the asana and the pranayama, but really making sure that we're eating well, that we're having a good diet, that we're staying healthy and fit with exercise. Those are the primary ways that we can assist those outermost layers. But as soon as we hit this layer, the Mano Maya Kosha, the third deepest layer, that's where our yoga practices really begin to shine. And this is where our techniques begin to differentiate themselves from the medical community and even from the classic mental health professional community. So we as yoga teachers and spiritual leaders, we have a different set of tools, a different set of techniques that are going to address these issues in a different way and a very powerful way, especially for those who are struggling right now. And trust me, they are struggling. You might be struggling. So the Mano Maya layer, the Mano Maya Kosha, the mind layer, this is this mental, emotional chatter that is often served up from deeper layers of our consciousness, from our unconscious mind. Emotions are caused by triggers, and a trigger is something that is buried and embedded deep within us. It was formed in our early childhood, most likely. And anytime an external situation seems to be similar to an event that occurred in our early childhood, we will have this same emotional reaction. This isn't a rational reaction. It doesn't have to make any sense, but it is a reaction nonetheless. I've noticed over the last few weeks and now a couple of months that the stress and tension of this event is putting us all on very high alert. We are very much locked into a fight or flight, stressful pattern of existence. We are all heightened with our awareness, and we are all deeply triggered by this situation. Now, again, the trigger doesn't have to make any sense, but it is present, and it is real for us, and it is occurring. Those who've never experienced anxiety before might be experiencing anxiety. Those who've never experienced depression before might be experiencing depression. And those two things are occurring in terms of this yoga outlook, this yoga viewpoint on the psyche at the layer of the Mano Maya Kosha. So when we experience negative self-talk, mind chatter, racing mind, thoughts we can't control, that is directly related to deep triggers that are being brought up right now because of this stressful situation. Now, the way that we address it with the Mano Maya Kosha are two different ways. Normally, we would address it with meditation. Meditation can be very helpful under normal circumstances to calm the mind. But right now, this might actually be counterproductive. When the mind is racing, when it's heightened in this kind of very stressful time, when the mental chatter is off the charts, meditation can actually create a scenario that increases anxiety and depression. Meditation is essentially us being left alone with our thoughts. And that could be really detrimental when the thoughts are harmful, disturbing, difficult, causing more anxiety. It's probably not necessarily something we want to do or recommend to everyone. Now, I know this might sound crazy, right? We're yoga teachers. Meditation should be the panacea. It's the silver bullet for everything. It's not. Nothing is. So I want to offer some other things that we can do if you are experiencing, or if you are working with students and clients who are experiencing anxiety and depression, to help calm this particular layer of the body. The other thing we can do for the Mano Maya Kosha is karma yoga, essentially helping others. Because when we help others, when we are in service to others, we're getting out of our own way. We're getting out of our own mind. Mr. Rogers has this lovely quote that in times of trauma, in times of stress, in times of tragedy, look for the helpers. When we look for the helpers, we are inspired. We see that there are people who are actually doing their best work right now. And my friends, that can be us, right? We can be the helpers. We can encourage our students and clients to help. There's lots of ways to help. In fact, there are lots of people who need help. You might be one of them. But even if you are one who is in need of help, there are still ways in which you can serve and help others. Whether that be donating time, services, food, money to others who are in need of food. Whether that be donating time, services, food, money to pets, rescue animals who are in need. Whether it be to helping our frontline health workers at this time. There's a lot of ways to help. So encouraging others to look for ways to help is an alternative to the other thing that usually works for the Manomaya Kosha, this idea of meditation. We can also juice up our meditation and do it a little bit differently. Okay, classical meditation doesn't always work for everybody anyway. It can often be a very masculine approach to something that actually needs to be softened into in a more feminine way. This unconscious, this part of you that is serving up these triggers. And oftentimes, and it may sound cliche, but this is how we refer to it, this part of you is referred to as your inner child. Children need care. They need nurturing. They need receptivity. They need a very feminine approach. This part of you that is hurting right now, and you know that it's hurting because of the effects, because of this increased anxiety and depression, this inner child part of you needs nurturing. So we can support it with a more nurturing style of what we might call meditation, what we could alternatively call is visualization, guided visualization, or even guided hypnosis. Many of our online streaming services like Amazon, Pandora, Spotify, YouTube have guided hypnosis that can be very effective right now for this layer of the body, helping to nurture and support this inner part of us that needs this more feminine approach. So I would suggest to you to actually do a little tour, a little hypnosis tour of whatever streaming service you are employing right now, to find a style of hypnosis that works for you. It might be a style that helps to reduce anxiety. And go ahead and lie down in a shavasana, put on that guided tape, and listen to it and see if it doesn't alleviate the stressful effects that are being applied to this Manomaya Kosha at this time. Again, this is something that you can do for yourself, and this is something that you can do for your students and clients. If you are trained as a hypnosis professional or a hypnotherapist, obviously this technique is also going to be incredibly helpful for your students and clients and for yourself at this time. Now let's dive a little bit deeper into the next layer of the body, which is the Vijnana Maya Kosha. Vijnana is the knowledge or the intellectual layer. So this layer is beyond the emotions. This is beyond the triggered mind. This is the mind that is more rational, the mind that applies itself to our daily lives, to figuring things out, usually to our careers, to however we work in the world. And of course, right now, for many of us, this layer might be greatly compromised. Our work might be non-existent at this time. It might have changed drastically. Rather than as a social function going to work, we might be socially isolated, staying and working from home. So the Vijnana Maya Kosha is very much challenged at this time. And when it is challenged, when we can't apply our intellect, our rational mind to the things that we enjoy, that we love, what we experience are apathy and boredom, loneliness, disconnection. This is really detrimental to us. It contributes to anxiety and depression on the next outermost layer, which contributes to more shallow breathing, which affects our Pranayama Kosha, the layer outside of that. And then it changes the way that we actually carry ourselves. We hunch over, we don't breathe as well. Our chest collapses, our upper back rounds, and that affects our Annamaya Kosha. So these deeper layers have reverberating effects on the ones outside of them. And what we need to do as yogis is some investigation to find the deepest, most layer that's being affected and treat it accordingly. So if we're experiencing anxiety and depression, it might not just be on the level of the Manomaya Kosha. It may be served up from the deeper layer of the Vijnanamaya Kosha because our career, our livelihood, the way in which we participate in the world is compromised right now. It may be at its source actually more apathy, boredom, loneliness than it is just a more surface level of depression and anxiety. So let's take a deeper layer with this Vijnanamaya Kosha, and if we are experiencing boredom, apathy, loneliness, then we need to address it. Now, normally, we would address the Vijnanamaya Kosha by ensuring that someone is engaged with life, participating in life, saying yes to life. The way that we say yes to life now is very different. We might have to work from home as opposed to going out. We might have no job. This is a reality for many, many people right now. So saying yes to life means participating in the way that the pandemic is requiring us. We might have to disinfect our food as it comes into the doorway. That is saying yes to life. We might have to find a colorful scarf to put around our face so that we can go out and walk in the fresh air and sunshine, and that might be how we now say yes to life. Typically, the prescription or the way in which we work with the Vijnanamaya Kosha when it's having some struggle is through Svadhyaya. This is one of our primary principles of yoga practice. We find it as one of our niyamas in the Eightfold Path. Svadhyaya is self-study. And this doesn't mean just looking at how cute you are, and I know that you are adorable, but really the study of the higher self, the self with a capital S. And we self-study through actual study. We learn about the things that help us to change our mind and perspective. We learn about the ways in which we can apply the work of the shadow to create more light in our life. Yoga is a self-study. So when we start to look at the deeper philosophical ways that yoga changes our life, when we start to read the texts of yoga, when we start to read complementary books that help us, we are doing Svadhyaya self-study, and we are choosing life. We are participating in life. We are saying yes to it. Turns out we might actually have a lot of extra time to do this right now. So if you have not yet dived into your self-study, let's do this, my friends. There are so many ways. One of the things that I've been encouraging you to do is to make sure that you are engaged in my highereducation.yoga membership. This is a great place to self-study. There's new content every month that comes out every month for you. There's ways to learn and deepen your practices. There's a community that comes along with this. It's $1 to join. So highereducation.yoga/trial to check that out and come join. If you are participating in any teacher training or higher education with teacher training right now, that is a perfect way to self-study, to Svadhyaya at this time. If you've got books on your shelf that you haven't yet read, but you've been meaning to, let's do it. Pull them down. Start to take notes. Dog-ear those pages. Underline the important passages. Engage in self-study, because while you might not do it in the normal way that you do it under different circumstances, saying yes to life, engaging and participating with life looks a little different now. So we have to adjust and apply Svadhyaya and its principles to our Vijnanamaya Kosha to maintain a sense of engagement, participation, as opposed to falling prey to apathy, boredom, and loneliness. Now we have one more layer or kosha to go through. This is the Anandamaya layer, the Anandamaya Kosha. That first part of the word Ananda is bliss. This is our blissful layer. And it is the part of us that is snuggled most closely to what we might call our soul, what yoga calls the Atman. Atman is the Sanskrit word for soul. In psychological terms, we would define this as your unconscious, the deepest part of you. So whether we call it soul, unconscious, Atman, there is that part of you that is hidden but yet very powerful, the part of you that has deep wisdom, ancestral wisdom, the part of you that has been the inner child part of you that has had your back for a long time, and now it's time for us to have its back. So this snuggled layer up against the soul is the Ananda Kosha. This is the blissful layer. And it is most healthy, it is most balanced when it has this connection to soul, when it feels that light within you, when it is able to see and transmit that light within you. And we can think of all these layers as layers over a light bulb. So if we think of the soul as a light bulb, we'll think of the Annamaya Kosha as like a sheer scarf covering over that light bulb. So the next layer, the Vijnanamaya Kosha, might be a sheet over that scarf, over that light bulb. The next layer, the Manomaya Kosha, might be a light blanket over that sheet, over that scarf, over that light bulb. The physiological layer, the Pranayama Kosha, might be, so if you can imagine that each layer is a slightly heavier covering over this light bulb, if we get finally to the outermost layer, that food body, that Annamaya Kosha, we may no longer see the light. It might be very difficult. There might be just a small warm spot where we might infer that there is a light. So the work of these koshas as yogis is to create more transparency through all these layers. So they're rather than a scarf or a sheet or a blanket or a duvet cover over this light of the soul, we just have saran wrap. It's just one layer of saran wrap over the next, over the next. And so even as we get to the outermost layer, we can see clearly that there is a light shining from within us. Now, we've all known people like this who are incredibly self-effulgent, self-luminous, that when they walk into a room and they just light it up. And that's an indication that these layers are transparent. When layers are not transparent, it's very difficult to see that light from within. And we want to be able to see this light from within ourselves, and we want to be able to see it within everyone else too. So this innermost layer, this Anandamaya Kosha, this snuggled layer against the soul, what feeds it most greatly is connection. Deep connection to soul, to self, to your highest self, and to that light in others. When we are disconnected, this, my friends, is one of the most detrimental states we can exist in as human beings. The state of disconnection is the thing that we fear most. Disconnection is not only harmful to us psychologically, it's harmful to us emotionally, it's harmful to us physiologically, and it's harmful to us physically. So I'm going to tell you a very sad story. And I apologize in advance for telling this very sad story. But when I was doing my psychology work in my undergraduate, we watched a video, and I'm sure that they don't show this video anymore. This was a long time ago. But the video was of a study of what happened when a baby monkey was raised by different types of mothers. So there was one baby monkey who was raised with its own mother in a room, no problem there. There was another baby monkey who was raised in a room with a stuffed mother, not a real one, but a stuffed one, fake one. And then there was a baby monkey who was raised in a room with a wire frame mother, so this mother had no softness at all. So the baby monkey who was raised with its regular mother grew up fine, well-adjusted, no problem. It had all the social interaction from the mom that it needed. The baby monkey who was raised with the stuffed mother developed such psychological damage, and it was completely in a state of psychosis that it had to be put down. That lack of connection, that lack of intimacy, that lack of actual touch really destroyed this baby monkey. And the baby monkey who was with the wire frame mother, well, it died on its own because of the lack of connection. We are hardwired for connection as human beings, as social creatures. It's imperative for us. And so you can see that social distancing and social isolation is incredibly potentially damaging to us on every level possible. Now, social distancing and social isolation is necessary at this time. It's just a part of our reality, and it's the best way possible for us to keep our physical health as well as the physical health of others to whom we might transmit the virus to. I'm all for it. I'm not recommending against social distancing. What I am doing is illuminating the very real consequences of it and hopefully making us all a little more educated and knowledgeable about how as spiritual leaders might help others through this crisis and ourselves in a way that preserves our sense of connection, in a way that preserves our mental, emotional, and spiritual health. I don't want us to come out the other side of this worse off than we were when we went in. And you, my friend, as a spiritual leader, you are on the front lines with the ability and the tools to be able to do that. So the Ananda Kosha, if it thrives on connection, its most detrimental state is the state of disconnection. Disconnection from soul self, from others light, will then produce apathy and boredom on the level of the Vijnana Kosha, which will then produce depression and anxiety on the level of the Manomaya Kosha, which will then produce damaged physiology, a weakened immune system on the level of the Pranayama Kosha, which will then produce physical effects on the Annamaya Kosha. These layers speak to one another, and the deepest most layer rules all. So we as yogis, again, we must be investigators to find out which layer is being most deeply affected so we can treat it appropriately. Now, the way in which we work with the Anandamaya Kosha is through creating systems of connection. And our tools as yogis to do that there's two of them, two very powerful ones. Number one, it is satsang. Satsang is community. A connection. Sat is the truth, and sang is community or attachment. So the attachment to the truth through a group of people. And this is the higher truth. So folks who are like-minded individuals. Folks who have a same view of the world as you do. Folks who are interested in yoga. Folks who are interested in enlightenment. Folks who want kindness to prevail. That is your satsang. And it is critical that you find them. And spiritual leaders, it is critical that you lead them. Forming a satsang, preserving a satsang, curating a satsang, shepherding a satsang is imperative at this time. I cannot overstate it. It's something that I am taking very seriously right now inside my highereducation.yoga membership, inside my private groups. It's something that I'm taking very seriously right now in terms of encouraging you to do it. It is the most important practice we can do at this time, satsang. And there are ways to create satsang community right now that don't require physical interaction. We can do it through Facebook groups. We can do it through online communities. We can do it through Zoom calls. We must do the best we can to pull our community together in order to prevent this feeling of disconnection, which again has consequences on the outer layers from there. So satsang is it, my friends. It is up to you. The other practice that is very helpful at this time for when we are not participating in community, in the early mornings or late at night or when we're just having a moment of quiet, is actually chanting mantra. When we chant mantra, we are connecting to something greater than us. Typically, mantra is a chant that invokes something bigger, whether it be a deity or spirit or some cosmic resource that we all have an affinity to. Mantra is key. So for those of you that do lead chant or teach chant or mantra, keep doing it. For those of you that have not explored it yet, now is the time. So mantra resources, I have many of them. I have an entire book about mantra called Sacred Sound, which you can check out. It outlines 21 of our most favorite mantras as well as the myths behind them so you understand them better. And I have lots of resources for you in many of my online courses, whether it be through my teacher training program or through several other online educational courses that I have. So please come check those out. Again, the best way to do that is through my membership, highereducation.yoga/trial. So we've now gone through all 5 layers, from the innermost, the Ananda Maya Kosha, our blissful layer snuggled up to that luminous light of the soul. And as we treat each of these layers, we create more transparency in them so that that soul shine is always visible and present, not just to us, but to those whom which we work and serve. These are how you help your community members. These are the tools that you'll use to help support yourself during this time. I hope that this podcast has been helpful and insightful for you. I hope it gives you a yoga psychology framework to do the work that is necessary at this time, to do the work that you are being called to do at this time. You are our frontline defense for spiritual and emotional health. You are so critical. You are so critical right now. Please get out there and do the work. Please support yourself and others. Please create a satsang. Please participate in your own satsang, because just as you support others, you must yourself be supported. I wish you all the best at this time. I have always been here for you. I am here for you, and I will continue to be here for you throughout this process. If you have any questions about what you've learned today, you know where to find me. Come join my membership. Join this satsang that is thriving and talking about all of these issues right now. It's only $1 to join. highereducation.yoga/trial. Otherwise, find me on social media, Facebook and Instagram, and let me know how you are using these principles to serve yourself and your audience. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing right now. I honor you and love you for it. And until next time, namaste.